Bob who?
Peace.
Peace out, Bob.
Right after the car or something.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 minute.
And there he is.
All right.
Once he gets seated, we'll start. You comfortable? Okay, that's good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Bernstein. I'm an attorney at law and the board attorney for the Hillsborough Township Planning Board. I'll explain my appearance in this chair in a couple of moments. This is the Township of Hillsborough Planning Board public meeting agenda for Tuesday, November 4th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. It is now 7:34. Call the meeting to order. Rise to salute the flag, Mr. Maskey.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me do the announcement of meeting notice, and then before we do roll call, I'll explain a couple of items. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, also known as the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2021 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers. The Township Clerk posted on the Township's website and available at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex. Further notice has been provided to the same that as of July 1, 2021, the remainder of the 2021 Planning Board meetings will be held in person at the Peter J. Biondi Building. Live virtual participation will no longer be available. Application documents have been made available on the Township's website at https://hillsboroughNJ.civicclerk.com/. Complete application files are available in the Planning and Zoning Department for inspection in accordance with the public notice. As you'll notice, I am sitting in what would be the chair's chair, no pun intended. Both Mr. Sirachi and Mr. Julian are not here this evening. After roll call, I'm going to ask for the nomination and motion and second for the appointment of an acting chair. I will also indicate for the record, for the purposes of the members of the planning board, the Township's Affordable Housing Planning Consultant, Jennifer Beam, is on the phone. And she is on the phone because she has conjunctivitis and cannot be here this evening, at least in person. So she will be on the phone. So I would point out, if you are asking her questions or speaking up, please make sure that you can be heard. And please do not talk over each other, as it will confuse Michael and Kaz as well. Michael, can we have a roll call the board members, please?
Mr. Emick, Mr. Ciccarelli, Mr. Senator Amita, Vice Chair Julian, and Chair Sirachi are absent. Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Peason?
Here.
Mr. Scobo?
Here.
Mr. Hashtag?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Delcourt?
Here.
Mayor Lapani?
Here.
Mr. Maskey?
Here.
Mr. Bernstein?
Here.
Kaz?
Here.
Is Ms. Beam on the phone?
Not yet.
Okay, you get her on. Oh, it's okay. While Mr. Maskey is getting Ms. Beam on the phone,
Hi, Janice Day. We're in session. Just please hold on.
Okay.
Jennifer, I acknowledge your presence, please.
Jan?
Let's try again.
Fred told me to take that off.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
While we're getting Ms. Beam on the phone, there is a need this evening, as I indicated, for the designation of an acting chair to serve for this evening. The eligible members are Mr. Peason, Mr. Hashtag, Mr. Scobo, because to be a chair or vice chair of this board, you have to be either a Class 4 member or an alternate, which has the same qualifications as a Class 4 member. So therefore, the mayor, the deputy mayor, and Mr. Wagner are excluded because they are either Class 1, 2, or 3 members. So therefore, we need a motion and a second to nominate an acting chair from amongst the 3 individuals I have so indicated.
Counselor, I'll make a motion to nominate Mr. Peason to act as temporary chair.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by the mayor, a second by
Mr.
Mr.
Scobo.
Scobo. Any other nominations? Any motion to close nominations?
So moved, Mayor Lapani.
Second, Bob Wagner.
All in favor of motion to close, second to close the nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Michael, would you take the roll call on the appointment of acting chair of Robert Peason?
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Peason,
Yes.
Mr. Scobo,
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Delcor,
Yes.
and Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Robert, it's all yours.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, first time for everything, I guess, right? Okay, Jen, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, before doing so, go through the agenda. There's no meeting minutes, consideration of resolutions, there are none. Is there any business from the floor for matters not on the agenda? Come on up. Step up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. I'm also a Hillsborough Township property owner, Block 86, Lot 32155, Champlain Road. I attended the February 2021 Hillsborough Township Planning Board meeting, which had Campus Associates LLC Weiss application on the agenda. And during that meeting, the application was denied. I participated in that meeting. I recently submitted a request for.
Can you speak up, please?
I recently submitted a request for government records through the Open Public Records Act. I requested a copy of the minutes from the February 25, 2021 Planning Board meeting, and I got a response that those minutes are not available. This is from February, and there was a decision made on that application. So this is 8 months later, and there are no minutes. I also submitted a request for government records through the Open Public Records Act for the resolution documenting that the Campus Associates LLC Weiss application was denied. And I also got a response that there is no resolution available. Meanwhile, there had been apparently, based on what has been discussed at meetings afterwards, planning board meetings afterwards, there was some kind of litigation, and then there was an ordinance in regard to the denial. We were told that Hillsborough is going to be responsible for attorney fees for denying the application, and yet there are no minutes from the February 25, 2021 meeting, and there is no resolution. And I think that that's a requirement of the municipal land use law. So I'm asking why those records, the minutes and the resolution, are not available.
Counselor?
Mr. Chairman, I can't answer the question as to the issue of the minutes. I can indicate that the resolution was never formalized in terms of being approved by the parties and adopted by the board, and that is why there is no resolution. In fact, that was one of the issues that Judge Shanahan did not find that to be a necessarily binding issue. That is why there is no resolution. There will be a resolution coming before this board shortly regarding the approval as per the settlement agreement, the ordinance, and the last hearing in October.
Okay, thank you.
So what Attorney Bernstein is saying is there will be no resolution documenting that application was denied.
There will be a resolution that will indicate the original denial as well as the subsequent approval.
So why is that combined in two? Why was there not a resolution as should be done after a decision is made by the planning board?
Mrs. Janusik, I indicated what occurred, and that's where the resolution is.
I'm sorry, what?
I already indicated the status of that prior resolution.
And we'll look into the minutes.
At one of the last meetings, it was stated that there was a draft resolution that was given to the attorney, Paula Castro, the attorney for Campus Associates. So where is that draft resolution that was given to him and that should also have come to the planning board?
It didn't come to the planning board, and I have a copy of the draft resolution, and it's attorney-client privilege.
The resolution of the Hillsborough Township Planning Board is attorney-client.
Until it's acted upon by the board, yes.
Why is it that Judge Shanahan gave an order? Why didn't that go to Judge Thomas C. Miller, who is the
May I?
attorney,
Yes,
who is
please.
the judge, who is
Can I
the
answer
judge
that
who
one?
was, who is the judge who was appointed to handle, who was, Judge Thomas C. Miller was appointed to handle affordable housing in Vicinage 13, which includes Hillsborough. And Judge Thomas C. Miller was the one who handled the settlement agreement. So why is it that Judge Shanahan was the one who then handled whatever happened? Because I don't know if it was an appeal or
Okay.
whatever it was. There is no docket number for an appeal. So
I'm happy to
what
answer your
happened?
question if you'll
Well,
stop asking it.
No, but I
Okay.
didn't finish what I
Okay.
was saying, so please, because you tell me all the time that I should allow you to finish, so I'm asking for that same courtesy. Okay, so why is it that Judge Shanahan was the one who handled
Because,
whatever occurred?
can I answer now?
Yes.
Because you questioned whether or not he was conflicted on this from a matter from 20 years ago. He did not believe he was, but for the matter of, to ensure that there was no sense of impropriety, he turned the matter over to one of his colleagues. So you brought this matter why he is no longer on the case, frankly.
And is there documentation stating why Judge Miller recused himself?
Not our jurisdiction.
So-
That's not a question we can answer. You can go talk to the court about that.
So you have no documentation other than that you have an ordinance that shows an order from Judge Shanahan, but does not specify why Judge Shanahan did that. You don't have those records in Hillsborough.
Why Judge Shanahan did what?
There's no written record transferring the case from Judge Miller to Judge Shanahan. It was his Honor's decision based on your issues raised that he felt, as Mr. Delfor indicated, that there, to avoid any impropriety, it was transferred over from the assignment judge, which he is, over to the presiding civil judge, who is Judge Shanahan, and that's who heard the case under the same docket number that all the matters have been heard, which is the 6119-15 docket number that's covered affordable housing in Hillsborough since 2015.
His recusal in no way admitted or denied any wrongdoing. It was just to allow avoiding any questionable future questions. That's not what makes sense.
So-
But is there a record from the planning board that the judge recused himself, and that's why Judge Shanahan?
I think that was asked and answered, ma'am.
There is no record?
There was no record of the planning board, Ms. Ma'am, because we advised the court based on the issues you raised at one or more planning board meetings as to his Honor's issues, and we advised the court accordingly, and his Honor decided what he did.
Okay. So the ordinance that states that there was an order from Judge Kevin Shanahan, that ordinance states that Campus Associates application should be, whatever needs to be done by Hillsborough in regard to their zoning ordinance should be done so that the Campus Associates LLC Weiss application would be conforming, and that there should be no waivers and no, what's the other thing, required?
Variances.
Variances, thank you. I had some,
The ordinance isn't before this body, ma'am. That's a township committee situation. It was the carrying out of a judicial decision and asking the question why it happened and what came about. The judge rendered a decision. The township decided, rather than appealing the decision, that it would go forward and comply with his honor's decision. And that was part of it with the ordinance.
and so Hillsborough complied with not requiring any variances or,
Hillsborough complied with his honor's order relative to changing the ordinance to make it a variance and waiver-free application.
so Campus Associates LLC is not required to have any kind of waivers approved or variances approved. And that includes the tree mitigation and all that stuff.
They had that opportunity. You sat through all the application. You know what they proposed or didn't propose.
No, I'm asking,
The answer
it's
is
not what I know.
They
I'm
could
asking,
have, if they chose to,
they could have what?
had a variance-free and waiver-free ordinance, waiver-free application that would have to be approved by this board.
And they chose to do that?
I believe they did.
So they're not required, even what they had submitted in regard to the tree mitigation or
Mr.
requesting for waivers,
Mrs.
nothing.
Jamison.
I'm asking about the
No,
tree
The
specifically.
board made a determination, the township committee has made a determination, and continuing to ask the same question 16 different ways isn't going to change the answer. What Campus Associates placed before this board and what this board did and what the township committee did are public record, and asking about something related to the public record isn't going to change anything. So I suggest we move on.
Okay, I had asked specifically about the trees, instead of answering my question, I have 20 minutes of, telling me what I know, what I don't know, what's whatever. I'm just asking about, there's going to be a lot of trees removed. Was that part of this, that they don't have to have a waiver or a variance for anything? The tree, that's included?
The approval's public record. You could find that out. I don't recall. And we're not, and as I've told you on multiple occasions, we're not in a position when we don't have all of the materials in front of us to answer specific questions on language or wording or dates or things along those lines. So that matter is public record. If you'd like it, you can have those records, but we're not going to get into a scenario where you're asking a question about a specific matter that we don't have the matters in front of us to ensure we're answering you properly.
Okay, it's just that this was all very recent.
Ma'am, asking about trees on an application that happened that we don't have anything in front of us at this moment is, I think, is an improper question, quite frankly. So if you can go to your next question, we'd appreciate that.
Campus Associates needs approval from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Land Use Regulation. They need permits, freshwater wetlands permit, and they need flood hazard area permit. Have they received those?
So as you know, and I'm telling you, I will never answer this question again for you. So here's you've asked it a million times.
I've asked about Sherman Tract.
So-
I'm asking about campus.
Whatever permits are required, we will ensure are granted. If they've been received yet, I don't know.
So how long does it usually take to get approval?
That's not a matter for this
a long
board.
time.
Please answer a question that we can actually answer.
Well, I would think that this is something that comes up very frequently.
The
and
board
there
is
should be
not
some kind of
responsible for the
time
DEP
frame.
permit timeframe.
So then the answer is you don't know if they got it or not yet.
That's exactly what I said. I said, I don't know if they've been requested or received.
Okay,
That's not the purview of this board.
okay. In regard to the developers who are interveners, how many parcels of land can one developer submit applications for in regard to the affordable housing requirements?
It's not a question for this board.
Why?
It's not a question for this board.
This is the planning board.
It's
It's
not an
not a
application.
question for this board. The issue of what was in the agreement is a township committee decision. And whether there were one parcel or multiple parcels is also immaterial to this board. The only thing that would be before the board is if and when one or more of those applications come before this board.
Okay, so if an application comes before this board in regard to affordable housing, and it includes a restaurant, retail business, a drive-through restaurant, cottages on a golf course, a gated golf course community, is that all inclusive of an affordable housing development? That it's permissible to be that, an
Maybe.
affordable
Depends on
housing?
the application, it depends on what the parties either agreed upon or what the zoning calls for.
But the party.
So until
but
it
the
comes
party-
from the board, we can't answer that question.
Okay. So has the Fair Share Housing Center and Judge Thomas Miller approved the affordable housing arrangement between M&M Realty and Hillsborough Township?
Yes.
So they do not have to have affordable housing on their site, and yet they are an affordable housing intervener.
Is that a question or a
Yes.
statement?
The answer is, they do have affordable housing on another site as part of the agreement, which you are well aware of, and.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
When you say that to me,
I say
you're
that to you
assuming
because
that you know what I
No,
know.
what I say that to you is because you've been before either this board or the township committee asking the similar or same questions.
No.
At other times, Mr. Jensen, I have sat through multiple meetings here and at the township committee when you asked about M&M, and all of the affordable housing applications that have come before either this board or the township committee, and you continue to pretend as if you've never asked these questions before. You know what the agreement says, you've asked for a copy, you've seen it. So, can we move on, please,
So
to a matter that's before this board?
M&M Realty will not have affordable housing on their site, which is the former Glengarry.
You already answered, he
Whatever.
answered that question
So now
specifically.
what they're going to provide as far as affordable housing is they're going to build on the Sherman Tract.
Correct.
Okay, so that and have they purchased that property?
They don't have to purchase that property. The issues are they're going to be designated redeveloped, the township, and the township's in the process of doing so, and their application is dependent upon being the designated redeveloper as to what is known as Phase 2 of the Sherman site, as per the agreement.
So the property, Sherman Tract property, that's going to be part of Phase 2, is owned by Hillsborough Township. So Hillsborough Township will be the owner of that affordable housing development?
No.
Mr. Chairman, this is not an application that's before this board at the moment.
No, it's not.
This is matters that are not on the agenda.
Yeah, but we don't have any.
Yeah, so you're asking questions on something that hasn't been presented to this board yet.
But this is all part of the
Ms.
arrangement.
Janusik,
This is all
please,
part of
please
the
don't make us
arrangement.
put a time limit on public questions, please. Could you get to the next?
I've perused the housing plan element and fair share plan, and that is in
Which is
there.
on- Which is on the agenda for later this evening, so if you would like to ask questions regarding the housing element and fair share plan, the time to ask it is after Ms. Bean's presentation.
I don't know if this is going to be in there, and so that's why I'm asking.
Well, you can ask
if
after you heard
Hillsborough
it all.
owns that- If Hillsborough owns that property, so will Hillsborough be the owner once M&M builds that affordable housing development?
That's not a decision for the planning board.
Correct.
Who's that
Next
a deci-
question, please.
Who's that a decision for?
Township committee.
When and
All
if
right,
it's approved.
Okay, and Toll Brothers will be building a gated community, there'll be cottages on the golf course and all kinds of amenities and stuff.
Has not been in
and
front of
they
the
will-
planning board yet.
It can't be commented on because it hasn't come before the planning board.
So what do you got next?
But there was an agreement,
Which is not before this planning.
It's not a planning board matter, ma'am.
Not yet.
Okay, so we're gonna go through the whole
If we can get to it.
presentation?
Mm-hmm.
She's
Okay.
waiting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No?
No, so moved.
Okay. Okay. Consideration of ordinances. I don't see any. And we're up to our public hearing, housing plan element and fair share plan. We have a presentation by Jennifer Beam of Leon Avkion Incorporated Township Affordable Housing Planning Consultant.
As I indicated earlier, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Beam is on the phone, unfortunately due to an illness. She cannot be here this evening.
Mr. Attorney Bernstein has come back to us. It's hard to hear everything.
It's closer to the microphone,
Sit
Counselor.
up closer.
Closer.
Ms. Beam is on the phone and she is here to make the presentation. One of the requirements to complete the township's affordable housing compliant plan is the adoption by this board of the housing plan element and fair share plan. The board has received copies of same. Ms. Beam is here, and I think at this point she's prepared to make her presentation. Jennifer?
I'm here. Eric, you can swear me in.
Jen, will you raise your right hand, please?
Please.
Do you swear in the testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you state and spell your name, please, for the record?
Sure. Jennifer Beam, B-E-A-H-M, licensed professional planner and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, Director of Planning for Lenapi Tribe and the Townships Affordable Housing Consultant.
Thank you, Ms. Beam. You proceed.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for my absence. I'm probably sure you would not like to be seeing me right now, but I'm here to present the Housing Element Fair Share Plan, which has been basically 6 years in the making. As I'm sure you're aware, in July of 2015, the township filed a declaratory judgment action with the Superior Court in Somerset County as a participating municipality, and after which time we have been working diligently with the court-appointed special master as well as Fair Share Housing Center and Judge Miller in order to come before you this evening and present the plan that has been on file with the township. As I'm sure most, if not all of you are aware, a lot of the work that is being discussed in this plan has already been completed with the township. We've had a number of interested parties over the years, and as settlements have been reached between the parties, zoning has been put in place, which I'm sure has been for you, and I know some of these projects have already been before you for site plan approval, and it's my understanding, and Mr. Maskey can correct me if I'm wrong, some of them actually have already started construction. The beginning portion of the plan, basically from page 1 to about 25, is a summary of updated demographics. And while that's a part of the housing element that the MLUL requires, it is really a regurgitation of census information on population, housing stock, employment data. And while I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that, I want again to reiterate, it is census data, not data created by me, my office, the township, anyone involved here this evening, and it's not subject to change. I cannot change the census information. So prior to a lot of questions about where does this information come from, it came from the census, and it's really just a reporting that occurs, obviously at least once every 10 years in order to make sure that all of the planning documentation within the township is up to date. The real meat of the matter starts in the Fair Share Plan on page 26. And what that does is it gives you a summary of the fact that from the outset and prior rounds, the township has been an actually proactive participant. And I'm sure some of you have been around a while know that we were actually like a couple weeks away from getting third round certification in 2010 before the rules were invalidated. So we have always been proactive in the affordable housing front. This iteration, which is several years, way more than the typical 6-year time period, it evaluates the present need, which is the town's rehab obligation, which is 75 units. It identifies the prior round obligation, which ranges from 1987 to 1999, which is 461 units, which has been certified previously. So that's not the subject of what we're looking at today. And then the third round plus what they call the gap period, which ranges from 1999 to 2025. Obviously, that's a substantive period of time, and the obligation is 1,378 units, which is overwhelming, and we realize that. Through multiple iterations, meetings, arguments, and what have you, we did get both Fair Share Housing Center and the court to agree that Hillsborough is unique in character in that, while yes, you have a lot of acreage in the municipality, there's only a portion of it that's realistically developable, and that's where you have your infrastructure, your sewer, your water. And that while other towns may not have infrastructure everywhere, the likelihood in those instances that it could be extended exists. In this particular circumstance, due to the geology and blasting, et cetera, the likelihood that sewer would be extended outside of your existing sewer service area is unlikely. And so as a result, Fair Share Housing Center and the court agreed that we would be eligible for a durational adjustment, meaning we would evaluate the land that's available for development in the sewer service area, which is, as you guys can imagine, up and down 206, Anwell Road, et cetera, in the area that maintains sewer, and that the area outside the sewer service area, we would, whatever the difference would be between what we evaluated in the sewer service area and outside would be what they would consider a durational adjustment. And that's going to become important later on. In addition, even though the rules had gotten invalidated in 2010 and there was no action until 2015, the town continued to move forward with projects that had been proposed in their plan in 2010. So as a result, there was a significant amount of units that the town was able to take credit for that had been approved through the planning board process, had been under construction. There's a number of supportive needs housing that exists within the community as well, and we were able to take credit for that to the tune of about 525 units of existing development, plus bonus credits on those units that we were able to credit against what our new obligation was. After months and months of arguing back and forth with Fair Share Housing Center and the court, they agreed that our affirmative obligation in the sewer service area was 1,109 units, and that there were a substantial number of individuals that were interested in participating in the plan, and that we were in the process of negotiating with all of those individuals, many of which you've already seen before you at prior planning board meetings, in order to address that obligation. And so that summary of that obligation is identified on pages 35 and 36. I do want to note there is one error in the table in that there was an additional bonus credit there was a typo in the bonus credit. The table shows that the obligation is 1378 and that we provided 1377. That is not the case. We have met our obligation through the supported needs housing, which is about 165 credits. That's a significant number. And then we have a number of inclusionary developments, some of which are already constructed, like West Spring Place, Brookhaven Loft. There's surplus from Gateway at Sunnymead that we weren't able to take credit for in prior rounds. Hillsborough Towers. Those projects are existing, built, occupied, and we were able to take credit for them. And then there's a number of projects that have been included in the plan to satisfy the shortcomings. And, as I'm sure you've seen some of them, the Brookhaven Loft has 2 expansions being proposed. There's a proposal at 3 Ronson. Larkin Development has a proposal, as well as Campus, which we talked about earlier this evening, 206 Holdings, as well as Premier has a number of projects, obviously Gateway, Brookhaven, they have a project on Valley Road that's included. And then there's 2 100% affordable projects, one of which is RPM. I'm not 100% sure if it's constructed, but I'm pretty certain that it's been approved. Am I correct in that, Dave?
Which project was that, Tim?
Sherman Truck.
The RPM project?
Phase 1 is, yes, approved.
Yeah. And then we have a couple of age-restricted developments, 2 of which are existing, a Senior Living Associates at Hillsborough Point, and then there's another Premier project on Amwell Road, that's senior as well. All of those credits include about a little less than 1099, plus we have 279 credits of bonus. Now, going back to this durational adjustment that I talked about earlier, we were able to take credit for your existing town center zoning that has been in place along 206 that allows for mixed use. We did have to make a couple of adjustments, nothing substantive, that would enable, if somebody were inclined to develop along those lines, we were able to, through thorough examination, my office, Dave's office, Eric's office, as well as Fair Share Housing Center and the court, to enable the town to take credit for 260 units that could potentially, I'm not saying it is all going to be developed, but there is the potential for 260 units to be developed through the town center zoning. All of those pieces put together get us to this 1378 number. And I don't want to underemphasize how hard it was to get to this number. We did that. There's a settlement agreement that was approved in April of 2020, I think, that kind of basically summarizes all these moving parts to the satisfaction of fair share. And there was a fairness hearing before Judge Miller that presented all of this. There was presentations of the various entities as well as the township and the court-appointed special master, all of which basically stated that the plan as put forth enables a realistic opportunity for low to moderate income households within the township. And so all that being said, I know it was a tremendous mouthful, is that in the 6 years that we've been working and churning on this, we have been putting these pieces together to get the township into a compliance position with a tremendous obligation having been imposed by the Supreme Court and furthered by court actions in Mercer County, which, you know, we really have limited control over, as you have said earlier. And that being said, and I'm more than happy to answer any very specific questions, but I know this is a very big plan with a lot of projects included. And I just want to assure you that the plan is reflective of what has been done, what has been approved by the court, and what is basically retroactively summarizing a lot of the action that your board has taken thus far over the course of the past several years, and have put us in a compliant position through the end of this round, which is 2025. So that being said, I mean, unless, you know, I'd be happy to answer specific questions that the board has, but that's basically the housing element of fair share plan in a nutshell.
Okay. Anybody on the board? Questions? Okay. Do we open it to the floor?
Yep.
Okay. Can I make hear a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we're open to the public. Any questions? Come forward. Flip a coin. State your name and address. Speak directly into the microphone, please.
Susan.
Hold on, Susan. No.
Nice catch.
Susan Gullah, Fort Hunt Club Road. Okay, I'm sure you covered it in that presentation, but I do have a few simple questions, I hope. The census data is one of the items that the court considers when they're coming up with our obligation?
No, actually, they have a very detailed methodology that has been utilized by professionals on behalf of Fair Share Housing Center, professionals on behalf of the League of Municipalities, and have been vetted out through the court system in front of Judge Jacobson in Mercer County. the census information is included as part of what they call the housing plan. It's just to make sure that the demographics have been updated with the most recent demographic information.
Okay, so when we're building more and more people are moving into town, that does not necessarily increase our obligation then, correct?
No, in fact, you know what, I mean, it's a very cumbersome formula, and I will admit too that I don't 100% know all the nuances about it. It's a very, very specialized process. But what is most important is the availability of land, vacant land. So it's not population driven, it's more land area driven.
Okay, and you said that you had used as part of your argument the consideration of large areas that are not available, such as Duke Farms or the Sourland Preserve. You made part of your argument that they could not be considered because they can't be built on, especially up on the mountain where you just can't do it?
Yes, which is why they have agreed, and trust me, and Dave and Eric were with me in the meeting, why they begrudgingly agreed to give us what they call a durational adjustment and have utilized the existing town center zoning as an opportunity for additional units if, and I use the word if very strongly, anything were to be developed using that zoning. So otherwise, we would have had to come up with an affirmative plan to address the entire 1378.
Okay, since it's partly, I believe you said, driven by the amount of open space that we have. I don't mean the legal open space, I mean undeveloped acreage. If we purchase more open space, would that increase our obligation, or is there any chance that the court would consider it an attempt to not have open space considered?
So if the town purchases open space and then it becomes, you know, like dedicated open space on your like recreation open space inventory, which is, you know, kind of like a deed restriction that it can't be developed, then that property would not be considered. And so when I touched upon the fact that we evaluated the developable land within like the sewer service area, like the area within the township that has sewer and water, if large chunks of that area were to be kind of like taken away. Okay, let me be very clear. The number for this past cycle or this past round has already been adjudicated, and the number is what it is. So anything that were to be done now would only really affect subsequent rounds, which would start in 2025.
Right. Ms. Beam, just interrupt. I believe Mr. Bernstein had a comment on that.
Let me go one step further, Susan. One of the properties that the township did acquire in the last few years was what is euphemistically known as Hillsborough properties. That acreage, if it had been left in its prior standing, which was developable, would have added over 250 more affordable housing units to the township's obligation now. It was taken out of the area, and we were able to get Fair Share Housing to agree that it could not be counted for purposes of the number. But that's a direct correlation as to how the impact is.
Then the $14 million purchase that we have not completed, but we're in the checking it out stage. If we purchase that, would that be considered in the next round? How would that fall?
If that land is, and I don't recall off the top of my head, if it's in the sewer service area, it would be potentially considered if it is. So it's obviously something we're going to have to address for round 4 or 5. That's coming sooner than we want to acknowledge it. Because we'll be over the hump very shortly, and we'll be within like 2 years of having to get back on the track again.
Okay, so it would, at this point, it's not an avoidance, it's just something that's in process.
One of the agreements we were successful, Ms. Beam, myself, Mr. Maskey, Mr. Delcor, the mayor, Mr. Ferrara, et cetera, convincing Fair Share to do, was to avoid what is euphemistically known as unmet need. which is a concept that's basically the difference between the number of units you have and the number of units we believe under the formula you're entitled to, which would have been several hundred, which would be at least 200 or 300 more units than we actually had to build. That's taken care of by the change in the town center ordinance. Therefore, any future building that produces affordable housing not in the plan goes toward the next round, but isn't counted toward any obligation we would have in the next round. So in reality, we should start at zero unless one or more, well, in terms of zero, if you see the chart, we will have no prior round obligation, assuming that everybody who's been part of this process isn't in the plan actually builds between now and, or has been approved to build between now and July 1 of 25.
Okay, except we're not considering reality, we're considering what's going on in the courts.
That unfortunately is reality.
Sometimes. In your argument that you presented in the papers about campus associates, I believe one of your arguments was that this was initially presented to all the boards as a concept, but had not yet been presented and heard and discussed. Not an approved final development. Are we going to, is it that way? Basically, we can't say, well, somebody presented us a nice concept for 1,000 units or whatever, but until we see it's in the middle of a floodplain, it's just a concept. But that argument did not fly with the court, right? Obviously.
No, and part of it because it was part of the plan and they were an intervener. If another party were to come in who is not necessarily a party to the litigation and make a similar kind of concept, it's a separate issue of how we'll have to deal with it. But Campus Associates, as everybody knows, was a party to this litigation from day one.
Okay, so the one out, I can't think of the name of it, the one near AeroPress, that was presented as a concept, correct? At this point, there's no
That's
file.
what we call the Valley Road site.
Yeah, that's
part of the plan.
So that's
in the plan that's before this, that has been approved.
okay, but it's only presented like the campus had been as a concept. There's not like a file.
Well, it's a concept
and
now, but it is one of the approved plans for purposes of the township's approval for meeting its affordable housing obligation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sorry, Jim.
So, Mr. Bernstein, just to be clear, and Ms. Beam as well, as of this plan, we have a fully conforming plan that has no future obligation remaining.
No potential future obligations in this round if it is all satisfied.
Correct. However, as is the case with the state as it relates to affordable housing, third round is not the end, and they will be coming back to us for more.
There will be what ostensibly is a round 5 under guidelines that no one, Mr. Delcor, has a clue what they're going to be. At the moment, it's whatever the court ultimately oversees, because the legislature has shown no inclination whatsoever to get in the middle of this, and I'm not sure that the soon-to-be constituted legislature is any more going to want to get in the middle of this. So chances are we'll be back at this again, starting to plan in the next 12 to 24 months for what we will not know is our obligation come 2025.
A moving target.
You are unfortunately the victims, other than the fact that you are one of the best places to live in the state of New Jersey, as Ms. Beam indicated, having undeveloped land in a sewer service area, which therefore has the necessary infrastructure potentially to deal with it, which is why one of the things we got was our durational adjustment.
Okay.
So it ain't over, folks, is what I'm trying to say.
Nope.
All right. And Ms. Beam is still with us. Next person, state your name and address, please.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. Ms. Beam kind of glossed over pages 1 through 25, but on page 22, there's a section called environmental constraints. In the second paragraph, it says, based upon an analysis of environmental regulations and planning areas designated within the township, constraints on development are anticipated to be limited to the Freshwater Wetlands Protection Act rules and the Flood Hazard Area Control Act rules. So this is very important as far as what kind of property is looking to be developed. If it has wetlands that are freshwater wetlands that are protected, and it is a flood hazard, especially a flood hazard area, since this just recently, the really serious issue with flooding. So why are properties that have freshwater wetlands and need permits and flood hazard areas, why are these being the properties that are out here being developed or looking to be developed by these interveners?
I'm not sure.
So to address that, just because there is an area of wetland or area that's regulated under the Flood Hazard Control Act doesn't preclude development on the bounds of the property, and developers, whether it's affordable housing or any development application put forth before this planning board or any planning board in the state of New Jersey, has the right to secure permits through the DEP, which I heard distinctly discussed this evening, are outside the jurisdiction of the planning board. It's called an outside agency approval. Any approval that the board gives is always conditioned upon an applicant receiving and securing outside agency approval, and that they are afforded as much time as it is necessary in most instances to secure those permits. So just because there's wetlands on a piece of property doesn't make it undevelopable. I can assure you that there were properties that were put forth to us that had significant environmental constraints which would restrict access that were not included in the plan. So just because a piece of property has some environmentally sensitive areas on it, it doesn't make the site in totality undevelopable. And that's basically, that's not just true here. It's not just true with respect to affordable housing. That's true statewide, development-wide, every town in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, but specifically for Hillsborough, how many of the interveners are on properties, have properties that have wetlands and that are in a flood hazard area?
I don't know the exact number, but there are a fair amount for sure.
Okay, I know Campus is, Sherman Tract is, JSM,
Like,
flood
is it
hazard,
question
flood
or
hazard.
statement?
Then I think the
Like, this is
Glengarry
question.
has some kind of environmental constraints. So pretty much every property that an intervener
No.
has some kind of environmental issue.
Well,
That's incorrect, but
That's
I'm
incorrect?
sure it won't matter whether I say it is or isn't, so it's
Okay,
incorrect.
all right,
You
so,
named four
so,
sites. You named
I'm
four
sorry.
sites out of like 18, but that's fine.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
You
What did
named
say?
4 sites out of 18. You
Four.
said all, and it's not all.
4 out of 18,
Mhm.
okay. So there are 18 interveners?
No, there's 18
There were
sites.
not, just because a site is included in the plan, it doesn't equal intervener.
Okay, but the interveners do have settlements with the township?
Yes,
But that's not a, can you,
it's not part of the
This is
plan.
this is a master plan hearing. I understand your concern with these specific properties, and I'm sure that when those applications come before the board, you can ask site-specific questions. But for a master plan and for a settlement, if there's developable property, and let me be very clear, if it wasn't developable, we were not entertaining it at all. And we were very happy to send people packing to the door on a number of occasions. But we are not the ultimate authority here, the court is. And there are properties that I understand you're unhappy about, but there was demonstrated developable area on those sites of which the court and fair share deemed appropriate.
Okay, on page 26, it says fair share plan, and then it's the fair share obligation summary. The cumulative 1999 to 2025 affordable housing obligation for the township is based upon the figures calculated in the Fair Share Housing Center's May 17, 2016 report prepared by Dr. David Kinsey, and the negotiated settlement agreement that the township has reached for the third round figures with Fair Share Housing Center and other interveners. What exactly when did Fair Share Housing get authority to be the one dictating to municipalities what their fair share housing obligation is? And who is Dr. David Kinsey?
The Supreme Court of New Jersey afforded Fair Share Housing Center the authority.
In what year?
2015, In Re NJAC 5:96 and 5:97. The seminal case that started all of this situation gave Fair Share A seat at the table in every municipality, and B, the authority to speak on behalf of affordable housing. Dr. Kinsey is their expert, and the report was generated, and Ms. Beam can correct me, as part of the litigation involving the Township of West Windsor and the Township of Lawrence that was heard by former Mercer County assignment Judge Mary Jacobson, who designated pretty much what the various numbers were for everybody.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, on page 28, it says that the township's third round was per David Kinsey and Judge Mary Jacobson. Her decision on regarding West Windsor.
The one I just mentioned.
What, excuse me?
Just the one I just mentioned.
Yes, so her decision regarding West Windsor determines the affordable housing obligation for every municipality in New Jersey?
Her determination established the formula that could be used for such, and the answer to that question therefore is yes.
And who gave her,
The Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey.
This is a planning board, ma'am, so continue.
I'm sorry, what was that?
This is a planning board, we're not a court.
And we're discussing.
The answer-
We sure
discussing
are.
this plan.
Yes, we
Mr.
are.
Chairman, the answer is the same Supreme Court that gave her the obligation back in 2015 when they put the hands of affordable housing in the judiciary, including Judge Jacobson.
So there was something mentioned about the town center, that there's potential for 250 more units to be added to that. Was that correct, or did I not understand that?
I don't really understand your question. I mean, it could not be clearer. The obligation was assigned to us. We didn't select it. It was 1378 in this round. The 461 was a prior round obligation, which the township complied with and it got substantive certification on. I understand that you're unhappy with the number, and I can tell you that we weren't thrilled about it either, but it is what it is. And there's a signed settlement agreement with Fair Share that has been approved by the court. So the point of this exercise is to demonstrate how we've complied with the number. It's not to re-litigate the number.
I had asked about, I thought you had mentioned 250 units and the town center. Did you mention something about
The
that?
town center.
Units.
What?
Please, Jen, go ahead.
So because we took a durational adjustment for the land area in Hillsborough outside the sewer service area, the court and Fair Share Housing Center and our team, which was myself, Mr. Bernstein and Mr. Maskey, evaluated the potential for development within the town center per the zoning. And that it was determined that the potential, should everything be knocked down and rebuilt from the ground up, for 260 units. It doesn't say it has to be done. In fact, there's a acknowledgement that it's unlikely that we're going to hit the number, but they've acknowledged that the zoning provides the opportunity, and we were able to take advantage of that to bridge the gap between what was assigned as our obligation inside the sewer service area and the difference to the 1378 number, and that was 260 units.
And I didn't catch what was said before about Hillsborough properties. What is Hillsborough? Is that property that was owned by Hillsborough?
That was property that was owned by a developer known as Hillsborough Properties that the township acquired for open space during this period of time, which took it out of the possible calculation for purposes of potential additional housing and additional affordable housing obligation, which we believe would be in excess of 200. Additional affordable housing units the township did not have to build or have to be responsible for because it became open space.
It's the area known as near Mountain View Park.
Now, also mentioned in this report is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund spending plan. Why wasn't there more information provided in regard to the spending? And is the amount of money that was paid, that $2,850,000 plus, was taken from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to buy Block 86, Lot 21, and Block 90, Lot 601, what's now called the Sherman Tract. Is that figure included in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and shown that money was used to buy land by Hillsborough?
Yes.
Okay, so now that was purchased with Affordable Housing Trust Fund money. The developer who develops that property, do they have to pay for the property that they're developing?
So that's outside the bounds of this master plan hearing. That's a conversation that you might want to have with the township committee, because that's based on the negotiated discussions between the designated developer and the township. That's not a planning board matter.
Okay, and so you have no other information in regard to the affordable housing the trust fund? Are there requirements that money has to be approved by the court before it's spent?
It was already. The spending plan was modified when the initial project was undertaken, and it was approved by the court. I don't remember, Dave, was that like 2016, 2017?
Yeah, approximately.
But the court has to approve the spending plan.
Is that the only property that was purchased with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund? What else? Because there was a big amount of money. I don't know how many, several $1 million, and it's quite a bit less now. So does that document where that money was spent?
That's what the document illustrates. Yes.
In this plan, it's showing where that money went.
Yes.
And all of that was court approved by Judge Miller.
The initial plan, which was probably 3 or 4 years ago, was absolutely approved by the court. This is an update, because things like my time and, the administrative agent that qualifies, individuals for the affordable housing units that are being constructed, as well as other avenues are also included. And so because that was done several years ago, there's a requirement to update it when we're, coming towards the end of this process in this round. That will then again, once, as we've already stated, the next round is right around the corner. Once that happens, a reevaluation, because at the same time as the town is spending money, they're also collecting money in the form of development fees. So it's a bank account, obviously. So when money comes in, it gets recorded. When money goes out, it gets recorded. And this is a snapshot in time that takes estimates, because obviously we're not in 2025 yet. And that it constantly is a fluid account, and the document gets updated, as is the housing plan, in the next round.
Okay, and so now the 18 properties that are mentioned in here, some are owned by the interveners, and the other properties are need to go before the planning board to see if they can be part of the affordable housing requirements?
I'm not sure why the ownership of the property has anything to do with an application. As I said, there are a number of projects that are identified in the plan which are slated to provide the township with affordable housing of which we are taking credit for, some of which are eligible for bonuses, which we are also taking credit for. If they are yet to come before the planning board, they have to do that. They don't get to just build because they're in this plan. This is a master plan document, and anything in this document is just basically saying, this is how we're satisfying our obligation. The specifics, the details, the drainage, the circulation, all that comes out in an application before the planning board, which has to be evaluated on its own merits. And so specific project-related questions will be more appropriate during that application time. This is really just kind of a summary of the settlement and how we're proposing and have been approved to satisfy that 1,378 unit obligation.
So that it wouldn't matter if a developer had several properties and came before the board to provide affordable housing, that's not relevant. If one developer has more than one development for affordable housing.
That's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beam, just a quick question on the very last page on the back of the spending plan. Can you just run through the projected expenditures? I don't know if the math adds up right.
So the expenditure table is, hold on, let me pull it up.
While you're looking that
Is
up,
included. So you have administrative expenses, you have mandatory affordability assistance. So you have a rehabilitation program, which you have to provide an opportunity for rehabilitation. We have a 75 unit rehabilitation obligation. You have to provide for the opportunity for that. It doesn't mean that that's actually going to happen.
I'm sorry, I was more just going through the numbers, not what they, what it represents, but I saw affordability assistance at 12,645,000, and you add up total projected expenditures, it says 5,955,000. I wasn't sure how that math works.
So we recently received comments back from the court on the spending plan, which ultimately, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, but ultimately needs to be approved by the governing body. So we have recently updated those numbers. There was some confusion over how the numbers were displayed, but at the end of the day, the affordability assistance totaled about $2.5 million.
Okay, because it says 12,645,000.
Yeah, I think that was part of the confusion. So so we have modified that. It's about $2,645,790.18.
Okay, so that looks like a typo, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Page 10, last page.
The plan is going to be amended. It is not necessarily part of the master plan approval. It will have to be approved separately by the Township Committee. It is not the items to be approved upon. It is merely an informational appendix for purposes of the housing plan.
Okay. Susan?
Susan Gullah, Fort Hunt Club Road. I have a question on the 75-unit rehab obligation that you just mentioned. If we have older affordable housing units that are counted into a previous round, and they are aging out and they need rehabbing, can we rehab those and put them back into play?
As long as they're not, as long as the township is not receiving credit for them in this round or subsequent rounds. So what happens at the end of the deed restriction is that it can be sold to a non-income qualified or rented to a non-income qualified household. So if it has transitioned over to someone who's non-income qualified, then the answer is no. If it stays within someone who has to go through the income qualification process and is income qualified and we are no longer getting credit, they were a prior round and the controls have expired, then the answer is yes. The individual then would be obligated to stay within the unit for at least 10 years. At the 10-year mark, the loan becomes forgiven. If they leave prior to that 10-year period of time, the loan needs to be repaid back to the trust fund.
Okay. And I wanted to ask Mr. Bernstein about something he said earlier about whether a developer is an intervener or not could make a difference. I said, if a developer who's already an intervener were targeting a new property acquisition, are they a step ahead, or do they have a different legal standing, or in the negotiations or this settlement, are they?
They potentially have the ability, and has occurred in this case, to bring more than one property before the court for purposes of consideration as part of the plan, which is what happened with Premier.
So it yes, does make a
They
difference.
ostensibly came with multiple properties and were, my words, winnowed down to 2, plus the one they were already building up at the, used to be Green Village, which is the Brookhaven Lofts.
But just to be clear, I want to make sure I understand correctly. Was your question if they're an intervener today, does that give them
Any extra rights?
on a
No.
future or something they may
Well, either-
also bring to the table?
Either way, do
Well,
they have other?
For this plan, it's the ones that have been approved. Anyone else who even the same developer comes and wants to develop property
another
X. Understand, they don't have intervener status, but they have an obligation under our ordinances to provide affordable housing so long as they build more than 5 units. Whether or not they're part of the plan or not, that goes for the next round. They don't get better status. They only got whatever status they got through the litigation.
That's what I was trying to say. That's what I thought you were asking.
Lord.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, motion to close public,
So moved.
second.
I'll second it, SCOMO.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, Mr. Bernstein, what's our action on this?
Our action is, based on Ms. Beam's presentation on the plan before the board, we are asking the board to approve as part of your master plan an amended housing plan element fair share plan that we can then, bring before the court for its approval as part of our compliance obligation to finalize all of our requirements for the 1999-2025 round. Anything else, Jen?
No, I would just respectfully request that the board act affirmatively and approve the housing element and fair share plan as presented.
Eric, is this just planning board approval?
Yes.
Any last questions?
We'll ask for township committee to ostensibly bless it, but it is the decision, this is a requirement of the court. This is the decision of the planning board.
Anybody from the board? Any questions, comments?
I'd just like to thank all of our professionals for the work that they've done. David, Eric, Jen. This process is daunting. It's exhausting. It's frustrating, and we're very fortunate here in town to have this work being done by people that understand the process and have worked with us lockstep to make sure that we were able to minimize as best as possible obligations and put in place this master plan that kind of helps us with a roadmap to how we can continue to meet our obligations, but be sure that we're not doing more than we absolutely must. So I just want to thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just mail upon here. Just, I haven't been in as long as Frank has, but as a longtime resident of Hillsborough, and I've seen the town obviously morph over the years. And we've been through this in front of the planning board in township, and it's a process that Mr. Bernstein probably lost half his hair in dealing with over the past 20 years. But I'll just read this. This is just the end of this phase. This is not over by any means. And people always come up and ask, what's next? Well, what's next is in 2025, it starts all over again. So these next few years would take the opportunity to continue to talk to the powers that be in the state legislature to come up with a better way of determining when and where fair share housing should be afforded and calculated so that possibly we don't have as contentious a topic after 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve the housing plan element and fair share plan report presented by Jennifer Beam?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it. Hashtag.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Peason,
Yes.
Mr. Scobo,
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Delacour,
Yes.
and Mayor LaPlante.
Yes. Thank you, Jen.
All right.
Thank you guys very much for accommodating me. I apologize for not being there in person.
Great.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Ms.
Feel
Beam.
better.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Okay. So there be no further items on the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Next meeting is November 8th.
November
Oh.
18th. I would point out, members of the board, we need a quorum. We have an application and an important resolution that's going to be on the agenda for approval. So if there is going to be quorum, thank you. Quorum problem, Deborah needs to know ASAP.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
8:50.